All right, so you can see I have the VWAP on my chart already. So we're going to use the VWAP center line to address this question here. So here's the question in Notepad, right? So what we want to find are 36 consecutive closes above the VWAP, right? Or, maybe below the VWAP, right? For an opposite signal. And, that's pretty straightforward here. But the key to this question here is allowing for, a dip, allowing basically for a bar to dip below the VWAP line, right? Or whatever, indicator you're using. Maybe it's a moving average within the last 5 bars, right? So we want to build in this exception here of allowing, the price bars to touch, the VWAP or moving average, if you're using a moving average in your system, to allow price to touch it within the last 5 bars so that it doesn't invalidate. Basically, we don't want to invalidate the 36 consecutive closes, above or below the VWAP, right? So, yeah, we don't want to invalidate those 36 consecutive, closes above or below. So, right, that way the setup for the ultimate signal, can still occur, right? So that's kind of the key to this question here, is allowing this little last 5 bar exception where price can touch prior to the other rules in your system, aligning and becoming true, and then the actual signal fires off, right? And we do have an image here to kind of illustrate here, right? So we can see, we have price well above the VWAP line here, right? The thicker dash line, right? So we can see that, it does look like there's definitely at least 36 bars, above that VWAP line, but then price kind of comes in and touches that VWAP line, and then, maybe something like maybe this K signal, whatever this is, maybe that's throwing up the actual trade signal, right? So we don't want price, so we do have our 36 consecutive bars above the VWAP, or again, maybe you might be using a moving average or whatever indicator it is, right? You want price to be above it, for X number of bars. And then just prior to the other conditions aligning for a trade signal, price might come in here and kind of mess around and, touch your indicator just prior to that. So we don't want this touching just prior to the actual signal, setup to invalidate, the prior, condition of, requiring so many bars to be, above the VWAP line there. So, all right, yeah. So that's the question. Pretty straightforward. So let's get BloodHound open here. And and also let me just state this is NinjaTrader's order flow VWAP indicator there. So, all right, so with BloodHound open, let's put a file name in first. So hit the save as, and let's see. All right, there was our last BloodHound workshop file, and today is the 10th. So there we go. Save that. And all right, so now we have a file name put in place so we can get all of our work saved to. So, okay, so I'm going to switch over to the logic tab here, and we'll start working on the logic board. So I'm going to hit the new button so that we can create a new logic template, and which activates working on the logic board here. So, I'm going to name this logic template here. All right, boy. Having to abbreviate a lot of stuff here. All right, so there we go. There's a name that approximates what we're doing. So first thing, the easy part is identifying, 36 consecutive bars, or closes above the VWAP there. All right. So to do that, we're going to grab a comparison solver, connect that in. All right, so we're going to compare the close of the bar to the VWAP line. So for input A, we're going to switch this over to price, right? Change the type to price. And there's the closing price of the bar already in there for us. And next, input B, that will be our indicator. So in this case, it's going to be the VWAP center line there. And of course, that could also be like a moving average, for other systems. Yeah, let's see, where is it? There we go. So there's our order flow VWAP. And let's see here. Yeah, resolution was standard. Yeah, the interval is session, and the trading hours is the default. All right, so we're good. So that's all just, the standard default settings for the VWAP. And down below, we do want the actual VWAP line there, which is already selected for us. So there, we're good to go. All right, so there we have it. Right, we can see, right, as long as the close is above the VWAP line, right, then we get a long output, and if it's below, we get a short output. So now we can start counting all of these, right? We can start counting the long outputs and start counting the short outputs. So, and to do that, we will use a signal counter. We could do two things. We could use a signal counter, or we could use a lookback node. So in this case, I'm going to use the signal counter, like so. All right. So with the signal counter, we need to figure out, what are we counting up to? What are we looking for? Well, we're looking for, 36 bars. And so our lookback period is also going to be 36, right? Because we want 36 consecutive bars. So the counting up to and the lookback period need to match. Yeah. And let's see here. As far as the resets go, we don't need any of these resets. So I'll turn off the resets there. And for the output, if you notice, right, obviously BloodHound is built to default to fuzzy logic here. So we can see that, the output is slowly transitioning, right, from a short output to a long output, right? And we're going to turn off the analog output and put it on digital. So that way it's nice, simple, and clean. Right. So there we have it. So, right, so we can see that once the close of the bar is below the VWAP line for 36 bars, we start getting a long output. And then as soon as the close crosses above, now it's above the VWAP, right, the long output stops, and now there's no output until the close remains above for 36 bars. Yeah, for at least 36 bars. And as long as it stays above, right, we get this long output. So that is our straightforward 36 consecutive closes, above or below, whatever indicator you want to use there. So pretty straightforward. So now you can use the signal counter to provide some allowances. So, but the way this is phrased is that, this is allowing for, price to dip below the VWAP, but only the last 5 bars, right? So this is pretty explicit right here. It can only be the last 5 bars. But so let's say if you wanted to allow 5 bars anywhere within the countdown, right? So if what you need is a little more liberal, and you're saying, so actually the way to rephrase this is, within the last 41 bars, then we need at least 36 bars to be above or below our indicator, right? So if you want to provide an allowance, then we can increase the look back period to 41 there. And you see what happens is, right, so once the close is below, we start the countdown, and we get to here. So this is our 36th bar, right, below where the close is below the VWAP. So the long output continues, and then you can see when the close crosses above, right, then the long output continues, because remember, on let's say on, for example, on this bar, right, the signal counter is looking back 41 bars, right? So it's looking back 41 bars, and of course it still finds at least 36 bars where the close is below, right? So you can build in a little allowance there, but and let's see here. Yeah, here we go. So here's a good example, I think. Yeah. So here we can see, right, the close of the bar is below the VWAP, and we get our 36 bar. But then we can see over here, I don't think the close crosses the VWAP, but here it definitely does. So on this bar, right, this bar definitely crossed above, and we still get a short output, until we get, let's see, here we go, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So we had 1 bar where the close is above, and then once price does finally cross above, right, we get 1, 2, 3, 4 closes above, and this 1 bar here makes the 5th bar above, right? So so you can use the signal counter to kind of build in an allowance, that can occur anywhere, back in history, right? So but if you do have a strict requirement that only the last 5 bars, then we're going to have to approach this differently, right? So we're going to put our look back period, put it back to 36 bars, like so. And there, yeah, so we can see, right there, the close is above, and so we no longer have our 36 consecutive closes anymore. Right? So now what we need to do is to allow for this, 1 bar that crossed above. Then we can just simply take a signal extender now, like so, connect that in, and the signal extender, it's already defaulted to extending for 5 bars, just so happens. So, and I'm going to go into the resets, and I'm going to turn the resets off on this as well. So, and so now, right, we have the bar, from the bar that crossed above, right, we have, let's stretch that out a little bit, right? So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right? So we have our long output 5 bars after price had crossed above there. So yeah, let's see here. So let's kind of go back up here, right? This kind of looks like the screenshot, that was sent in a little bit there, right? So here we can see, 1 bar. Man. All right. Yeah, so there we can see, right, we got 1 bar that crossed below, and then we have, 4 more additional bars afterwards where the other rules could kick in and actually generate the sell signal. Right. So that's it, pretty straightforward there, right? So we have our comparison solver, which is identifying price being above the VWAP, and so let's revisit that, right? So right now, this is pretty liberal, where let me put it back on here, right? This is pretty liberal where it just says 36, closes above the VWAP, right? So this 36, closing prices. So let's say you wanted to be a little more conservative, a little more restrict, where the entire bar needs to be above your indicator, right? The entire bar needs to be above it, right? Well, so for a bar to be above your indicator, well, that means the low price has to be above it, right? Obviously, if the low price, right here, we have this bar over here, right? This low wick, crossed below the VWAP line, right? So therefore that bar is touching the VWAP indicator. So that bar is not above it, right? It's actually touching it, right? So let's say you wanted to make sure that the entire bar is above or below the indicator, right? Then what we can do is adjust our comparison solver so that for a long output, right, for the bars to be entirely above your indicator, we need to compare the low price. And then for a short, it would be the opposite. It would be the high price of the bar, right? So now, let's see. Well, yeah, the close actually went below. The close went above. Let's see if I can find a good example. Oh, yeah. So here's a good example, right? So the wick, actually, let's do this. Let's just look at the signal counter there. Let's shrink that up. All right. Yeah, so as soon as that wick crossed it, right, the condition was no longer true, and so the signal counter stopped, counting the shorts there as soon as that wick broke above, right? So whatever your, whatever you are whatever you're more exactly, more precisely needing, do you need the close of the bar, or do you need the entire bar to be above or below some indicator, right? And that's just determined by what price you're comparing to the indicator there. Okay. So, I will put this back to the closing price of the bar. We'll put it back, to the way the question was phrased there. All right, and so now we can see that the wicks are no longer interfering, with this requirement. So, we have a bunch of wicks touching there. Let's see, some other, thinking if there's any other variations on this. I think that pretty much sums it up there. yeah, so also, I guess, yeah, just to continue to elaborate on this, right? So we're using the signal extender to take a condition, right? So our main condition is 36, closes above or below some indicator, right? And then once that condition is found, we're taking that condition and extending it forward for another 5 bars, in case something else, in case price, does some kind of behavior that interferes with this, with this requirement here, right? With this 36 bar requirement. So we're extending it forward here, right? So using the signal extender, or, we could also use the lookback node to do the same thing. But this principle of taking a condition and then extending it forward in time so that something else can occur, right? So some of the other rules within your system can occur, right? That is a very common principle of system building, right? So you're looking for something to happen back here, and then you're looking for something to happen later on, right? And then you get your trade signal, later on down the road, right? So linking these conditions together is a very common component of system building, right? You got condition A, and then you got to wait for condition B, right? And then and then finally condition C is the actual trade signal, right? So there is a video, that discusses the various ways that you can link conditions together, right? The linking, being illustrated by the arrows here, right? So there's several ways that you can link conditions together, as they occur at different times on the chart. So I just wanted to also bring that to your attention as well. So this is a very noteworthy video to watch. So, all right. So from our website here, let's see. I'm going to go to support, and then go to the open the documentation page here, and then I'll click on BloodHound. Right. That takes us to the Getting Started guide, and from there, let's see. I think I'm going to look at the system building page. No. All right. It must be the solvers and fuzzy logic page. Oh, sorry. There you go. It's the bottom one. Frequently asked topics. Yeah, of course. That makes more sense. There you go. So linking multiple trade conditions or rules together. Right. So that's the video here that I wanted to point out to you. Right. So again, in the Getting Started guide there, right, this frequently the bottom page here, frequently asked topics, in that first video is a very worthwhile video to watch and understand, so that way you're aware of the different ways that you can link conditions together, right? And again, that's, and that is what we're doing when answering this question. That is what we're doing. To put it simply, right, we have the condition, of 36 consecutive bars happens back here, but then possibly 5 bars afterwards, right? So 5 bars forward in time is when the trade signal might actually occur, right? So we're taking a previous condition and extending it forward 5 bars in time so that another a second or third condition can occur, and then the trade signal is generated, right? So even though it's only 5 bars, you're still taking something that happened previously backward in time and you're extending it forward, right? You're linking it forward in time, right? So my, example on the chart is definitely over exaggerated. So a lot of times you're only taking something and just extending it forward in time just by a few bars, and so just like what we did here, right? In the signal extender, is only extending it for 5 bars, but still, we're taking something that happened in the past and linking it forward into the future, even though it's only 5 bars in the future. So, all right. So with that, I think we're kind of done with this question.